this will be good. Anybody know anything about neurofeedback? Nope. Perfect. All right. So I'm really informal, as you can tell. I already took a seat. So what I like to do is if a question arises, I like to address it right then. Let's get the information so everybody's probably got the same type of questions. And so as we're going along, if you have a question, just raise your hand. I'll call on you, and we'll address the questions as we go. Okay? Is that fair enough? All right. So we're going to be talking about neurofeedback. I'm Dr. Todd Woodward. Just so you understand, I am a chiropractor. Okay, that's where I got the doctor title. But I am a neurofeedback specialist. So that's what I do in my office. Now, majority of my patients, I do adjust them before we do the neurofeedback. But that's all inclusive, and we'll get into that in a little bit later. So we're Cognitive Solutions. Right now, we're at that address right there in Eagle, which is in between Houston and McMillan. We're looking at moving a little bit closer towards the freeway, still on Eagle, but if you know where a new leaf is, that's kind of like where we're looking over there. So anyways, here's our email and our website for any information. All right, so we're going to be talking about BrainCore. And when I use BrainCore and neurofeedback, BrainCore is just really the system I use. BrainCore makes the neurofeedback system that I use. So when I use that, I'll probably use it interchangeably, but just know BrainCore is the neurofeedback system. And it's really a cutting edge technology right now. And the reason is the big key word out there right now is neuroplasticity. Who's heard of neuroplasticity? Okay. So, I mean, you hear it all the time on different commercials, everything, and really, neuroplasticity is actually our brain's ability to form a new connection in a response to an experience. So these new connections mean new neural pathways that can be activated. And even more important, it doesn't even say it there, is we can actually strengthen ones that are already there that may be weak. Okay? But when we actually have that neuroplastic change or strengthening that going on, we can help with some neurological conditions that are associated with. This isn't an exhaustive list, but these two right here are by far the most common things that I treat in my office. And then, I'm currently with PTSD and traumatic brain injuries. I've done quite a bit, but by far, this is my bread and butter right there. So we'll get in there. So when we get into this neurofeedback, I'm going to kind of get into the history, but trust me, it's not going to be very long. We're going to kind of breeze through that so we can get to what neurofeedback really is. So first off, it's a science. It's basically a training method based on operant conditioning. Anybody heard of operant conditioning? About classical conditioning. Heard of Pavlov? So, Pavlov was classical conditioning. And operant conditioning is kind of like it, but a little bit different. We'll get into that a little bit later. But operant conditioning is really a patient is rewarded for producing a certain brain wave, and that reward can be visual, auditory, and tactile. And as we get further into this, you'll understand what this all means. So the patient eventually learns how to control the production of a desired brain wave voluntarily. I mean, the brain learns how to do it, doesn't have to think about it. It just gets a new set point and it's done. And the results that we get are a reduction or alleviation of neurological symptoms. Now let me just be clear that we do not cure anything. That is not our goal here in neurofeedback. In neurofeedback, our goal is to take a brain that is more in a dysregulated state, in the inability to regulate itself, and move it more into a direction of normal regulation. Okay? Nobody's going to be perfect. No brain is perfect. Everybody's got some sort of dysregulation. But we have a normative database, and I'll get into this, but we want to get that brain moving in the right direction. The more it can process in a normal fashion, the better they get. And that's when you start seeing the terms of maximized results, things like that. Okay? So real quickly, just kind of get the history. Neurofeedback's been around since 1963. A lot of people don't know about it because it's not widely used still. We're getting there, but it's doing it. But Dr. Sturman actually founded what happened with neurofeedback in 1963. Did some research that you'll see here in a minute and how it applied. But it all started with him, and then it just moved along from the 60s into ADHD, and then over the last about 15 years, autism has been getting a lot. In fact, the American Academy of Pediatrics is currently doing its 5-year study on neurofeedback and autism. And right now, we don't have the results because it's in there. But what the American Pediatric did was they did a 5-year study on ADHD and neurofeedback. And and they came back with the results as a level 1 best support, meaning neurofeedback was just as effective as any medication out there, but the main difference was we have permanent lasting results, and once you're done, you don't have to keep doing it, okay? And that's the big thing is if you're on medication, you have to keep taking medications. If you stop, it returns. Ours is, once it's done, it's done. We always compare, you'll see this, we compare neurofeedback to like riding a bike. Once you learn to ride a bike, you always know how to ride a bike, barring some traumatic brain injury and stroke and stuff like that. So he received his PhD at UCLA in neurology and psychology. He was doing some sleep research at the Veterans Hospital in LA. Basically, he set out to answer whether a person chose to go to sleep or if the brain imposed to sleep. Now, I talked about the name Pavlov. He did the dogs and the salivation, but he said it was a choice. Very soon found out it wasn't. So, yeah, he set out to replicate Pavlov's studies. He used the EEG to observe the brain waves. He began with his 30 cats. All of the cats were connected to an EEG, and he could observe their brainwaves during the experiment. The first cats were conditioned to press a lever to get a reward of milk or broth. During the initial phase of the experiment, nothing unusual was observed. Then he introduced a tone, and this is where it kind of changed up. If the cat pushed the lever while the tone was sounded, the milk would not be delivered. Now, so the cat would have to wait, actually, for the sound to end before it would get its reward. So what he ended up finding was that there was a unique state after this variable was introduced, and it's actually what he found was a whole new brainwave called SMR, which we'll get to. But what happened is the cats remained absolutely still, but extremely alert, waiting for the tone to finish. And so I liken it to, if you've ever seen a house cat get ready to pounce on a mouse, they get really low, they get really still, they don't move. And that's where they found that they were producing this wavelength right here, which is called an SMR, a sensory motor rhythm. And so he found that, and so what he ended up taking that further down in the research. But so he awkwardly conditioned those cats to create the specific frequency of SMR, which he did quite well. So no lever was used. Instead, the cat was hooked to an EEG, and whenever the cat produced a half-second burst of this wavelength, the SMR, the cat was given the milk. And what ended up happening is he trained 10 cats to produce SMR at will. Okay? He reproduced those results with 8 rhesus monkeys. Now, the cat's research was in 64, 65. He did the monkeys in 67. But he didn't understand the whole issue with this until later on, and that was when he was, the cat study and everything, they said, you're done. NASA said, we need you to come and find out why we're getting, these astronauts are getting seizures when they get exposed to hydrogen, which is rocket fuel. So he went and he took 50 cats with him and injected all of them with hydrazine. 40 of the cats immediately, or not quite immediately, but an hour after the injection went into seizure activity. 10 of the cats from the previous SMR experiment did not develop seizures at all. It resisted that seizure activity. So what he found was that if they could actually learn to produce and strengthen this area of the brain and those brain waves, that they could resist seizure activity. So the cat's seizure threshold had been increased and the brains were now functionally altered so as to prevent the seizures. So Sturman ended up advancing his studies. He took it into the epileptics and started doing neurofeedback training with epileptics that had grand mal seizures. And in 1978, he put his findings in here, and they were able to reduce grand mal seizures by 70% just by neurofeedback training. And so it's quite impressive. So he really stumbled upon the miracle of neurofeedback, and we've got a lot of people who since then took up the study over the years and have gone even further, which is why we get the autism study and the ADHD study and traumatic brain injury. In fact, right now the Veterans Association is using neurofeedback specifically for PTSD cases. Now they only have 2 systems in the country, so there's a big long wait. Okay, so but they're getting great results. So his work eventually led to the discovery of the neurofeedback protocol still used today to treat grand mal seizures. And BrainCore uses the proprietary software that actually incorporates his protocols as well. So, like I said earlier, it's like riding a bike. When we learn something, we know forever. So, if I was to explain to you guys right now, if you've never ridden a bike, I said, okay, here's a bike, and I show you the bike, and I said, you just basically sit on this, you pedal as fast as you can, you go. Do you think that information is going to translate into the ability to be able to ride a bike? The answer is no. You wouldn't be able to take that because the brain requires an experience with a consequence, and the consequence we call feedback. So the brain learns from that experience, and over time, physical ability is acquired. So this particular case right here, the consequences in the feedback is going to be gravity. If they don't do it just right, what happens? Poof, they fall over, right? But that's why we have them in the training wheels, and they learn their balance and their shift and the momentum, and they learn all that, and eventually we take those wheels off and they've got it. Once they've got it, barring traumatic brain injury, stroke, or a hypoxia situation, which is a decrease in oxygen, they'll never forget it. They will always have the ability to ride a bike. In fact, I didn't ride a bike for probably about 12 years, and I just rode one, easy as can be. And so, sometimes tools that assist the learning process, such as training wheels, and we really like to say neurofeedback is kind of like the training wheels for the brain. Eventually, the brain develops the new neural connections and translates it into mom. I can do it. Look, mom, I can do it. All right. So just as you always remember how to ride a bike, the improvements made with neurofeedback are permanent, barring those three things I just said, which was traumatic brain injury, post-stroke, and hypoxia. So in order to understand neurofeedback, we're going to get into brain waves and mental states and how it all relates. So there's four primary brain waves that we talk about in neurofeedback, okay? Delta waves, theta waves, alpha waves, and beta waves. And they're all associated with different things, and we'll get into that in a second here. But the brain waves tell us how different areas of the brain are communicating. And each of the four different brain waves are associated with particular states of mind. So you'll see delta waves are associated with deep sleep, HGH production, which is human growth hormone. So anybody who has, or if you know anybody who has fibromyalgia, most of the reason that they have fibromyalgia is because they never get into a deep sleep state and they don't produce human growth hormone. And what ends up happening is they end up HGH actually heals the microtrauma we put our bodies through every day. If they don't get into that deep sleep and produce the HGH, they don't repair microtrauma, which is why they get multiple tender spots and they hurt all the time. So it's really a big deep sleep problem for fibromyalgia. Theta waves are the twilight state. You're on your way to sleep, but you're not quite there. It's when people have their best ideas. It's where you feel like you're falling, and you wake up, things like that. That's the theta waves. Alpha waves, that's more in that meditative state. You're a quiet alert, but internally focused. And then the beta waves are what we are right now. We're awake, we're functioning, we're processing, problem solving, we're focused, alert. That's beta. So when we have no problems regulating these all different ways, we don't tend to have certain problems. It's those that have a problem regulating 1, 2, 3, or all of them that will produce certain problems. So the slow processing is going to be the delta and the theta. Okay? Idle processing is going to be the alpha, and fast processing is the beta. So we kind of the spectrum of how we process, okay? As we slow down, we get ready for bed, and then we wake up, we go over to fast processing, we may get into that, we need a nap stage, and we get into idle processing, and we shift back and forth. Normally, we should. Certain conditions will keep us from doing that and doing that shift. And so, really, neurofeedback is all about neurological regulation and dysregulation. We have what's called NDS, or neurological regulation syndrome, so NDS. And it's really non-regular brainwave patterns or inappropriate brainwave patterns for what they're doing and time of day and stuff. So neurological dysregulation refers to the inability of the brain to regulate itself. And this results in miscommunication within the brain and the production of abnormal or atypical brainwave patterns, and that's neurological dysregulation syndrome. Okay, so again, this is just that spectrum I was just talking about, the delta, theta, alpha, beta. So it's delta, theta, alpha, beta. So how do we identify the neurological dysregulation? is really important. There's actually two ways that we do it. Now there's really a gold standard and an older way. I still do both. But the first one is called an EEG, electroencephalograph. And what that really does is it's a non-invasive tool that allows us to measure the global brain waves. And it provides a brief window into how the brain is functioning, how well is it functioning. So we actually do one lead on the top of the center part of the head. There's a very specific spot that we put it right on here. We have a clip on each ear, and we actually read the global activity going on. And what we do is it's a 2-minute reading, and we know that if, for age group, if they're below the age of 12, then they should be, the ratio should be between beta and theta. Okay, so the awake processing versus the twilight state. They should be producing normally between 2.5 and 3. That's the ratio number between the beta and theta. If they're higher than that, then we know there is a theta problem, and that's mostly associated with autism, ADHD, things like that. If it's a beta problem, they're going to be a much lower number, and it's going to be an anxiety problem, or it can be migraine headaches and other things that are down there. This is the older way that we do it. We still do it because there are certain kids that won't let me put a cap, as you'll see, to do the actual brain mapping. They don't let me put a cap on. And so we still want to get a baseline of where we need to go so that we have an idea of what our goals are in treatment. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry,
just
there's
really,
the hand.
yeah, just really, if they're on medication, does that?
Yeah, good question. The only medication that will affect anything is going to be what's called a benzodiazepine. So any of those classes, so Xanax, Klonopin, you know, any of those that are going to alter brain state, those are the ones that will do it. That's the only one we've actually been found to affect any type of that. Yeah. Go ahead.
What about, there's so many children who suffer from autism and anxiety, and that's obviously the different ends of the spectrum of waves that you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, autism out of all of them there's no typical, meaning I have some that is purely a delta theta problem. I have some that come in and exactly like you said, they're a delta theta problem, but they also have a beta problem, which is anxiety.
So it'll show up both.
Yes,
with
yes, and actually I have a case
anxiety.
that I brought here that we're kind of dealing with that. I treated her 2 years ago. She was 5 years old, autistic girl when she came in. And it's at the end, but I have her summary page of the brain map, which shows us what happened, where the meters were with her brain waves, and then where she is today and where we're going to pick up. And then she's 8 today, or 8 this year, but so we treated her about 2.5 years ago. And you'll get to see where she is, but we'll cover that. But that's good. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So here's the new way that we do this. This is actually the cap I was talking about. You can see these little white spots in here. We put gel in those, and we actually do 6-minute recordings with the eyes open, and then another 6 with the eyes closed. And the reason we do that is we want to see the patterns, because when you simulate sleep, which is just closing the eye, the brain shifts. And we should see a high production with the eyes closed in the delta theta, and then when the eyes open, we should see a shift to the higher beta. So we're looking at those patterns as well as what's the production look like, as well as the asymmetry. We know that the beta should be higher production on the left, more alpha on the right. So we're looking at all these different things to find out exactly what's going on in there so we can actually pinpoint the parts of the brain that need the most work. Okay? So the QEEG is really the gold standard. It's not invasive. The biggest part is getting this on. And I've treated Down syndrome. I mean, I've treated pretty much everything, and I've had every kid at some time try pulling it off. They won't let me put it on. But we work with everything that we possibly can to get at least a baseline. And then, in fact, I've only had one kid where I could not get anything. So we're working on it still. So. But most of the time, in fact, I had an autistic kid come into my office who said, we asked him about doing the math, and he told me straight out he was not going to do it. There's no way in the world we're going to do that. And so I sat down and I started talking to him, found out what he liked. He liked Star Wars, the cartoons. I said, hey, I happen to have Netflix, let's put one on it. We watched Netflix, and I sat next to him, and I just kind of talked to him, and we watched that, kind of built that camaraderie of, I love Star Wars. I'm a nerd. But I just built that camaraderie and that trust with him, and it took about 20 minutes, but he put the cap on, and he let me do the math. And his mom was just going, I can't believe it. But we were able to get it, and he's like, oh, that wasn't bad. And after we did it. So, but we always work with our ability, and you know, if we have that where we're questioning if we can do a map, we can always do that EEG, and if we can't do that, we start looking about just building that rapport, where I had the one that did not let me do anything. We just came in and sat them down, and we just show them what we did, we put the finger on the head, just trying to get them used to touching the earlobes. Just, that's what we work with, and we do what we can until they, one is, trust me. You have to trust that one is I'm not gonna do anything. So one is you'll never see me dressed like this in the office. I have shorts, jeans. I always have a shirt like this, but I do not dress up. One is white coat syndrome. I don't know if you've heard of that, but white coats cause people to have increased anxiety as well as blood pressure and everything. So we avoid anything with white coats. We like to be down to earth and get down. I climb on the ground. I'll sit with them and play match. We have Matchbox cards in there. I'll play Matchbox cards. Whatever we got to do, we work with them until they trust. That takes 3, 4, 8, whatever visit it's going to take before they trust me. It may be a 10-minute, it may be a 5-minute visit. Until they trust me, that's what we do. That's, you know, we just work with what we can. Oh, and the next thing about the mapping is it's compared to a normative database of hundreds of thousands of what they consider normal. Like I said, nobody has a perfect brain, nobody's completely normal, but they have, the medical profession has deemed this normative database is the best we can get. It's optimal, okay? So it gets compared to this normative database as well as functional MRIs, and it prints me back and it sends me a map of everything. So this is actually a summary page of what a map would look like. Now, this has actually changed. It's now, this would be the delta theta, this is the beta, and this is the alpha. This would be the cognitive regulation and dysregulation. So if there's cognitive impairment, we're going to see that as well. But the names have changed since we put this in here. But this right here, I don't know if you can see it, says CEC. That's the Cognitive Emotional Checklist. And what happens is before the parents come in to do the mapping with their child or themselves, I don't treat just kids, but 98%, probably 99.8% of what I treat is kids. But I do have a couple adults that I'm treating. But what happens is they go online, they get a link from us, an email link, and they log in and they actually answer a questionnaire. And it goes through and then it rates this based on the little legend here. It's low, moderate, and high. I'm most concerned about moderate and high. So this particular case, the mapping said, hey, we're pretty good in all these cognitive areas right here, which this is attention right here, verbal processing, decision making, visual processing, and so forth. You get down into math comprehension, stuff like that. And it just goes further. We have anger, irritability, agitation, self-deprecation, things like that. Here's what the parents answered, and then you look, it's high, it's high, it's high, it's high, it's moderate, high. So what happens is those aren't really considered matches because the areas of the brain that are regulating these behaviors and everything is not dysregulated. But as we get over here, you start seeing socially inappropriate, hyperactive. These are all starting to match up, so we're starting to see that. The more this matches up in here, the cognitive meter will go higher. This is the actual brain waves, okay? So as you'll see in here, this right here is considered an anxiety case, probably some ADHD and anxiety. So kind of coming to your question, this was and you can have them all. Every one of the brain waves can be dysregulated. It's not common to see them all, but it can be. But this was that delta theta. This can be, you know, like I said, that's where we see the autism, the ADHD, cognitive impairments, things like that. So it is elevated, but the beta is higher. So my biggest concern in that case would be, right now, would be the anxiety. And I would address the anxiety first. Once we start seeing that go off, we might see another meter rise up, and that's when they'll say, okay, well, the anxiety is a little more under control. Let's move on to the attention issues, or it could be an anger, irritability, aggression issue, things like that. So it's always looking at the map and finding out and correlating exactly where we need to be. Now this is called the QEEG site correlation site. So on the last page of the map, you actually, when you come in for a map, you get an actual hard copy of the map. I give it to you and I actually go over my findings on the map with you so you can understand it. But in the very back, I'll tell you, well, my protocols are, I want to start in the back of the head here, which is the occipital region. I want to start back here, and the reason is I'm really seeing a lot of visual processing issues or procedural memory issues. Things back there just aren't working the way I want, so I might start back there. ADHD most commonly are going to start right here or up in the frontals, and those are the attention areas, and we got language comprehension And so short-term memory that go through here, you'll see there's attention areas right there up in the frontals. So we always look at the different areas that need the most work. So if I go back here, these are the four most dysregulated areas in the brain right now. And like I said, there was some attentional issues, and I look at that, so I say, okay, well, probably attentional issues, but again, this is higher, so I'm going to go after the anxiety first. But this is in the back of my mind that it's something we're going to want to look at down the road a bit. So neurological dysregulation and how it's associated with conditions. So each condition is associated with a dysregulated pattern of brainwave. Now again, autism is one of those that it's not, I know ADHD is a delta theta problem, 99% of the time. Autism can be anywhere. And so when they come in for mapping, I'm pretty excited because I want to see exactly how it is, because I really haven't seen anybody that's exactly the same. I see similarities, but nothing has ever been the same. So the initial brain core QEEG map evaluation will identify the focal dysregulated patterns. Again, it's just really important to know that the EEG, the single site EEG, is a global. It does not identify focal all over the head. It's just global, one whole thing. And the mapping it's all over. It's more focal. So right here, the fast processing is a beta problem. Now let me just kind of, so you understand, beta and alpha can be two types of problems. It can be a production problem, meaning it's too much or too little, and it can be on the wrong side. Okay, beta should be a higher production on the left side versus right. Alpha should be on the right versus the left. So we do see a lot of asymmetry problems in autism. Okay, so they have a shift of production in one and the opposite side of where they should be. But when you have a problem in the fast processing, whether it be a production problem or an asymmetry problem, anxiety is the number one thing I see. Now, it's not the only thing. I get a lot of this obsessive thinking, excessive rationalization, poor emotional self-awareness. Those are kind of more the things I get. Once in a while, I'll see migraine, tension, headaches, but this is really more anxiety in this thing over here. Some restlessness is another one. If it's an alpha problem, again, production or asymmetry problem, if it's alpha by itself, nothing else is elevated, the number one thing is depression. But if we have alpha elevated with any of the other ones, then we're going to start seeing anger, agitation, irritability, we'll get passive aggressive behaviors, some withdrawal behaviors. But anger by far, anger and agitation are really the most common. Okay.
So, popped in my head when you were talking about, would this also be helpful for a child who's having problems with night terrors?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, actually, we can actually get them through that and actually help them sleep better too. Yeah. So, but again, only by itself, and it's rare. But somebody comes in and they're have clinical depression. It's usually that's all we see is an alpha problem. Okay, and then we get to the delta theta slow processing. Now this is only a production problem. It's not an asymmetry problem. It's only production, and it's usually way too much. And so what we end up seeing is ADHD, you'll see autism, Asperger's over here, cognitive impairment, traumatic brain injury. This is where probably about 97% of what I treat is in this area. Okay, and so you'll see, but there, I mean, we see impulsivity, hyperactivity, there's focus, attention issues, which all go along with ADHD. The case that I'm going to go through with you at the end was autism case. It was a highly delta theta problem, and you'll see what happened when we did our training. So possible causes of dysregulated patterns, you can be born with it. There's genetics, birth traumas, the big pulling and twisting and everything as they're coming out. Emotional physical stress, that's really common with depression. Head trauma, that's traumatic brain injury. Drugs, toxins, poor nutrition. Anybody know what a vertebral subluxation is?
Basically, your spine is.
You go to a chiropractor?
I certainly do.
Good, then they educate you right. A vertebral subluxation is actually known as joint dysfunction, meaning when a vertebral segment is actually stuck, puts pressure on the nervous system, doesn't work at its optimal point, it puts what we call neurological stress on the system. So that's what a vertebral subluxation is. So any of these and more, but these are the most common, especially genetics. So cognitive solutions, our neurofeedback system, which is brain core, is the most sophisticated clinically usable system in the world. We're one of very few systems that have a brain mapping system part of our system. It's all inclusive. In fact, we're almost to the point of getting it to where instead of 6-minute readings with eyes open, eyes closed, we're going to be able to do it all in 1 minute, eyes open, eyes closed. So it's 2-minute readings instead of 12. And that would be huge for my autistic and Down syndrome kids that tend to want to move, or my ADHD kids who are severely hyperactive. And trust me, I don't have any pictures on my walls because more my ADHD kids have taken them off the wall and thrown them across the room. So we don't have that, but yeah, we'll get to it'll be much better because right now, and in fact, the system will be able to, right now I have to be on a pause button, so if they go to move, we'll get a shift in their recordings, and so I have to hit pause as soon as I see a movement to try and get a good, clean map. The system that's going to be actually coming out very soon that has that 1 minute eyes open, 1 minute eyes closed, will actually self-pause when it senses a movement, so it does not record it. So it's the only system in the world that will be able to do that. And so that's why I say it's really the most sophisticated system.
Is that new MRI thing? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, that's the functional MRIs. That's part of the comparative database. The mapping, the QEEG is what I'm talking about, which is the actual tap on the head and doing the brain recording. So right now we have a rotary switch, and we record 2 sites at a time because if we did it all in 1 minute and not be able to pause, we get what's called artifacts, false readings. Okay, and so what we have to do is they have to be really, really still. And I don't know if you've ever seen a Down syndrome kid sit ever still. They don't. And so I'm on the pause, and so I have to get a pause because I want the cleanest map I can get. Does that mean I get artifacts? Yeah, I get artifacts all the time. But it's being able to identify the artifacts and then say, well, we know this is an artifact, but here's the problem. It's rare now. I've gotten really good at my pause. But once it comes out to that 1 minute, and self-pausing, it's going to be fabulous. And they've been on that for the last 3 years to try to get that out. So they say it's going to be this year. There's not that much longer this year, but we got it. So we're going to kind of talk about a training session, how it works. My first off was doing the map. We did the brain map, the patient intake, which is the cognitive emotional checklist. We correlate it. We find out exactly the areas of the brain we need to work. We choose a protocol, which I prescribe and say this is where we're going to start. This is the reason. This is what our goals are. So once we've done all that, the next thing is actually a training session. And so what it looks like is my patients, when they come in for a training session, they come in and you'll see the first thing I do is I adjust the patient. The reason is you take that neurological stress off of their system, it just it optimizes it, they operate better, they feel better, and it helps. From there I go in and I do transcranial laser therapy, which is really, it's just ultraviolet light. And we go over the areas of the brain that we're going to be training. So if it's in the occipitals or in the frontals, we just do on each side, we do about 3 joules of energy. Research says we can do about 20 joules of energy, but I'm on the very low end because all we're trying to do is increase its oxygenation, blood flow, and give it a little energy spike so that when we get on the neurofeedback system, they're getting their rewards right away. Okay, so everything is going to be designed in my office to get that brain getting it rewarded right away so that we're getting it in the training mode is much faster. In fact, before transcranial laser and this whole body vibration, it would take 45 minutes to get the brain, and 20 minutes of it would be just getting the brain up to speed. Since adding in transcranial laser therapy and the whole body vibration, our training sessions are 25 to 30 minutes, and then they start from the minute we hook them up. They start getting rewarded right away, and they're getting much stronger rewards in training. So the laser really is for helping oxygenation, blood flow. Only about 0.3% of what I put over the head makes it through the bone, so it's very, very low, very safe, no drawbacks to it. Nothing can ever be a problem with it. Whole body vibration, it just trains the brain to produce the desired wavelengths. Ours are programmable to put it at the wavelength that we're going to be training. So if I'm encouraging to produce the appropriate levels of beta, which is going to be between 15 and 20 hertz, I'm going to vibrate them probably at 16, 17 hertz. And that's just going to give a lot of input to the brain saying, okay, we need this frequency, and it syncs them up. And it works great. When we added these 2 in, it actually gave us about a 13% improvement in our results. So I kept it. I said, any type of improvements we get on is great. We offer M-wave biofeedback, which actually helps people to breathe better, get better oxygen. It's more for anxiety, depression cases. But we do have a pulse oximeter. We do check their oxygen levels. If we have good oxygen in the brain, we just get better training, better results. So I do check them. If they're low, I do have an oxygen unit that we can put them on, or we can put them on the M-wave, which will teach them how to breathe more properly, get better oxygen levels. We have a audio-visual entrainment, which we don't really use much anymore. It has flashing lights and sounds and everything. Most of the kids don't like it, so we use it with adults only, but it's not even used. These have really more replaced that. Again, we're 25 to 30-minute sessions now. Average sessions for, and it's really more ADHD sessions, is going to be about 20 sessions for ADHD. Autism, we're average about 30, so it's about 10 more than the ADHD. I have done up to 50 sessions on neurofeedback, but that's not all in one sitting. We did 30 sessions, we took 3 months off, come back and did 10 more sessions, took a month off, and did another 10. That was a 5-year-old nonverbal autistic case, started speaking on my bed. So his first word was dad on the bed that we have, and I'll show you the system what I mean by bed. But he actually started saying words on our bed, and Mom was crying because she couldn't believe it. But this is a kid that had no desire to have any interaction with siblings. He had older siblings, he was the youngest. He was not wanting to participate in anything, and he ended up starting playing with his siblings. He started communicating with them, started being more participative. He actually got into a more Head Start program. He was 5, but he couldn't go to school, but they put him in a Head Start program, which he started interacting with those back in there. And now he actually is in school, and he is almost 7 now. So, all right, so how neurofeedback is done, you're not this close. This is just for purposes. You'll see this is called the doctor monitor. This is actually patient monitor. In this particular instance here, you'll see that here's the leads. You got ear clips and you got the leads. We use dual site training, and the reason is when you do a single site training, not that it's bad, and in fact, I have an autistic case right now that he wouldn't let me do the map. We just started last week. He wouldn't let me do the map, but he let me do a single site. And so I got a foundation, and so I said, well, I'm going to do a single site training. And I'm just going to improve his SMR. Do you remember SMR was the sensory motor? And I'm going to increase that right there. I just wanted to produce more. Because what happens is when we increase SMR, usually they let me do a map. Within 2-3 weeks, I'll have a map. And so we started with him with a single site. But most of the time we do a dual site because what happens in a single site, if you're on one side, the brain has to figure out on the opposite side what we're doing. And so it's a compensatory mechanism. The brain has to figure out what we're doing, so it takes time. So what I do is I train that compensation on that side at the same time I'm doing the other one. So then the brain is actually all moving in the right direction at the same time instead of some lag time between it. But it's not really bad, it's just we've gone further with our training. We can actually do 4-site training, but it's too much on the brain in my opinion. So I like to stay at 2 sites. It's the best way that I've seen as far as results, and that's the biggest thing I'm concerned about is results. That's what I want. And when we talk about results, we'll get into how we measure those. So basically, individuals are hooked up to the computer using wires and sensors. There's nothing going in. We're only monitoring their brain waves in real time and rewarding it for what it has. So my computer, the doctor's computer, has all the set points, left hemisphere, right hemisphere of the brain. I have all my set points and everything. When the brain produces the desired set points that I have over here, in this particular case, this is a puzzle. Puzzle pieces will fill in. The minute it goes outside my parameters, it stops. And when it fills in, it gives it a tone as well. And what happens is the brain will fill in the pieces, and when it stops, it's not meeting my demands, it stops and waits for the brain to learn. The brain will actually try and stimulate itself, and once it does, it gets back up to my level, it fills in another piece, and the brain will go, oh, okay, and it starts figuring out a new set point, and so it ends up getting easier and easier, so I have to make the set point harder and harder. And that's how we're really moving that brain along. This is a single site training, and this one is actually a theta down training, and an up training on the SMR, okay? And so this is actually all the brain waves going on. And if you'll see, here's what the brain waves producing really high delta, theta, and even into alpha. And then as you see, the beta is kind of starting to get lower. So we're actually saying, I want you to stay below this, so it's yellow. That's meeting my demands when it's yellow. And if it's above this line, it'll stay yellow and it's meeting it. So I want more SMR, less theta. These are the actual wavelengths, so you'll see over here, can't really read that, but it looks like this one is SMR, this one is going to be the theta. This is all the spectrum of all the brain waves that are up there. So, but I want to see, one is SMR is a higher, it's actually, SMR is 12 hertz, 12 to 14 hertz is the level that it should be. Delta theta is going to be between 1 and 8 hertz. So really we should see these switch. And that's what our goal is to actually get them to reverse. In this particular scenario, we want them to be able to reverse. And when that happens, we see a lot of what I call miraculous things happen. So the information about these brain waves are displayed on my monitor, and that's my monitor. The software automatically detects when the brain waves are properly ordered, and it feeds that information back to the patient by giving it a tone and filling in the pieces. So I don't like the puzzle myself. It tends to get pretty boring. I use movies. One is the kids, most kids love movies. And so we'll use movies, we utilize Netflix, and we have Amazon Prime. Even I have kids using YouTube. Anything that we can do on the computer, we can utilize as feedback. And what that is if it's a movie, basically on my system, which you're not seeing here, it has a recliner, not really a recliner, what do I call it? Lounge.
Like a lounge.
It has a lounge. And they're on it, and it actually has transducers in there, so it has vibration as well. So that's another reward, tactile reward. So now you have audio, visual, and tactile rewards. But what I do is with the movies, when the brain's doing everything I want, movie sound, everything's great, vibration's going. The minute it goes outside my parameters, the sound fades, the screen fades darker, and the vibration goes away. So all three of those rewards go away. The brain says, whoa, I want that. And so it figures out how to meet my demands. And what it does, everything comes right back real fast. Full color, full sound, vibrations on. And the brain learns from that reward. And so in the beginning, it's doing this. It's fading in and out. And I have kids going, there's like a shadow. There's nothing. Don't worry about it. In fact, I had a 30-year-old autistic gentleman send me an email on how to fix the fade in and out on Netflix. 3 weeks ago, he did that. He sent me a link, and he's like, you can just go here to fix. So he came in, and I said, I got your email. I need it to fade in and out. That's what's training the brain. Oh, okay, and I get it. But we like to fade in and out. But this morning, had an autistic kid in there who he just loves. I don't know. I have a special needs daughter, and one thing she loves to do is organize. She just likes to put things in order. It's Matchbox cars. It doesn't matter. It can be glasses, whatever's in hand. She wants to put it in order and organize. And he's really like this too. So he likes organization. So what he does, he comes in, and he's mostly nonverbal. He does speak a little bit, but he signs up to me that he wants to do today. He wanted to do YouTube moving videos. I mean, literally packing boxes, putting things in, and having the movers come and take it from one location to another. Trust me, they're there. I didn't know they were. They're there. And so we did 30 minutes of watching people move. I had fun from Minnesota to New York. And I mean, I was like, holy cow, I didn't realize this existed. But even before this, I didn't know this existed either. 2 weeks ago, he comes in and he wants to do, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called Food Hall. It's on YouTube. And it's about how the people go and get tons of food at the grocery store, and why they get it, and what they're going to make, and everything about it. And they just have it all spread out, and then how they actually organize and how they get everything into the refrigerator and the cupboards and everything. It's all organization. He loves it. Had no idea it existed, but you know what? It keeps his attention. And before the YouTube, when we tried to do movies, he would sit there and go like this. And now we got YouTube, and we found something he likes. He does not touch them. He's fully involved, and his training is going way, way back. So that's the big key, is finding out what they want. So we try to do that usually. His dad told me he would do certain movies. We tried it. It didn't work. As soon as we went to Food Hall and moving, it worked. So again, here, I like movies. It captures. Anybody in here know anybody or have ADHD? I'm ADHD. So
I'm ADD.
Okay. So biggest thing about TV, movies, ADHD, we don't. We shut down and we just pay attention. And normally, as parents, we don't want our kids watching a lot of TV. But this particular case, it's good TV because it's actually training the brain to do something. So I really like the movies. Again, we do have Pac-Man. We can use Minecraft. We have a wireless keyboard, so we can hand them the keyboard if they want to play Minecraft, and they can play. It's just going to fade in and out, sound's going to go in and out, just like the movies. Puzzles, music, we can use music. Most of the time, adults will be the only ones that use music, and we only like to do soothing, classical music. We have the tactile vibration. We can utilize reading if somebody wanted to come in and just read. We can bring up a book online and they can read. And it'll fade in and out, so it's really hard to read, but we've never had anybody, it's an option. So why it works. When you have information on what your brain waves are doing, your brain can use that information to change how it works, which is the operant conditioning, and the ability the brain has, which is neuroplasticity, which is changing the brain. Not only creating new pathways, but strengthening existing ones. So adjunct therapies. Therapies we utilize in conjunction with the neurofeedback to help achieve optimal results. Those were we already went over, but I'm going to say again, transcranial laser, whole body vibration, the M-wave biofeedback. And just so you understand, since I have the word there, biofeedback and neurofeedback. They're different, but they're the same. And that is biofeedback is how they bill it in insurance and everything. That's the name. But biofeedback really is different in the fact that it's a reward system on learning how to do a physiological change. So if we want to change body temperature, heart rate, breathing rate, things like that, those are physiological. That's called biofeedback. Neurofeedback is actually changing neurological stuff, so the brain. Okay. Transcranial laser, this is just what it looks like. It's a little wand. We just put it on those spots. Again, increases oxygenation. There's our whole body vibration unit. Trust me, 99.9% of the autistic kids don't want to get off it. They absolutely love it. You would think a lot of because of their sensory issues, things like that, that would be an issue. But for some reason, every one of them love it, and they don't want to get off it. And so, in fact, I had a 36-year-old autistic gentleman I just finished with, and he was pretty severe, wore the helmet, face, had gloves, had the cauliflower ear from pounding over his lifetime. He really liked the whole body vibration, but he did neurofeedback in California, and his dad came to me and said, we really want to try this again. We got no results with neurofeedback the first time we did this. And I said, well, kind of tell me about what you did. And he said, well, we did a 2-week intensive in California. We went down to California, and we did a 2-week, twice a day, every day for 2 weeks. I said, that's way too much. That becomes white noise to the brain. You know what white noise is? It's just the brain says, I'm done. It shuts down. I said, we need to do twice a week, and that's it. I said, let's just do twice a week. Let's see how he does. Now, this particular case, even though he's autistic, he had what they call a 48-hour cycle. Different behaviors, different things every 48 hours. He'd switch back and forth. And he was only sleeping 1 to 2 hours a night. That was it. That's all he's had most of his life, 1 to 2 hours a night. So we started training him. He loved this, but we started training him. He's now, I just released him a week and a half ago. He had like a 56% total improvement towards normalization, which I'll get into. But he had a 56% improvement towards normalizing his patterns, but his sleep is now consistently 6 to 8 hours a night. Okay, still wears his helmet, but he verbalizes much better. Not to where you understand everything he says, but he can. Towards the end, I would come out and I'd say he loved Horton Hears a Who. Favorite movie. I hate that movie now. Okay, I've watched it 30 some odd times with him, but he would come in, but I would come in and I would say, okay, we've got Horton Hears a Who, we've got Toy Story, we've got Cars, and I would give him an option. And he would say, in approximation, he would say Horton, or he would say Cars, or whatever it would be. But he would start saying, and he would actually be able to make those decisions, where his dad was making the decisions before, where now it came to him, and now he's 36, still needs help, has still issues, but he's able to verbalize much better. He's able to get it. The biggest thing is what his dad said was, not only did his sleep improve, but what the biggest thing was is all these other therapies that he's been doing, the vision therapy he's tried, he's doing all these other things that he's doing in conjunction with, have all gotten better because of this. Okay? And that's the biggest thing, and I think I have it in here, is all other therapies. This is not an end-all, be-all, cure-all. This is not what it is. This is a little piece of a big puzzle. That's what neurofeedback is. And what I mean by that is I have a girl, autistic girl I treated today. She worked 2 years. She's 8 years old. She worked for 2 years with an OT on her handwriting alone. Could not read her handwriting. she came in, we started going, we got a little bit, I recommended 30 sessions, we got about 8, 9 sessions in, and she brought me a letter that she had wrote with her OT. Completely legible, it was like a thank you letter. Her mom and dad were like, this is the best thing that's ever happened. But I have that letter on the wall still. Anytime a patient brings me something, I put it up. It goes on the wall, it's like the achievement wall. I've had kids that just say, I'm feeling better now, and things like that. But we keep that on the wall because we want other kids to realize that, you know, if you just come in here, and it's not hard work, it's watching a movie. It's all very passive, but if you just endure, it's going to help.
I have a question. You mentioned some of the feedback is having the movie fade in and out. What if you have a child like I could see are getting agitated because the movie's not working? How would you work?
Most of them, you would be surprised, most of them don't. In fact, the one I told you about, who started speaking on my bed, here's, to go a little step further. His mom would have to lay on the bed, and you'd have to be in between the legs, and he would do this the whole time. Didn't even pay attention much. He would watch once in a while, and he would be all over, doing this. Yet, started talking, started regulating, started going with, you know, interacting with siblings and stuff. It doesn't, it's just, it works. It works better if you pay attention more, if you're more just kind of in the zone with it. But we still got, he was the one I did 50 with. And he probably wouldn't have had to do 50 if we could have had him being a little more in the beginning phases of it. He wouldn't have to do that many. But most of them, you'd be surprised. I did have the one that sent me the link saying, here's how you fix the fade in and out.
Yeah.
And I had some that say, I said, we needed to do that, just watch it. And you tell them that, and then they're like, okay, I'll get it. They usually get over it after 1 or 2 times. But most of them, you'll be surprised. You're like, you think it would be? It's not. It's not good. This is just what the airwave looks like, how we do the breathing. Again, most of the time we do that. That's the ABE unit, the audio vision entrainment. It has LEDs in here and sounds. You can't use it for the epilepsy, but a lot of the anxiety, depression cases, we can use it. This is a little computer, and we tell it what to do and what frequency and everything. But we don't use that as much anymore. So this is what I meant the lounger. This has the transducers in it. They don't even make this anymore, but I still have it. I love it. The kids love it. It's memory foam. It's real comfortable. I only had one, and that was my son going to sleep on it. But the funny thing is, because of vibration, they can sleep. I can still train the brain. That's the cool thing about that. This is an oxygen unit. But here again, doctor's computer, what I'm doing over here. That's their rewards. They're watching video work, puzzle, everything. Here's the sound and everything. So that's what a whole system looks like. Like I said, they no longer, I have 3 systems in my office. 2 of them are not this. I have one of these, and then the other ones are just regular loungers, so we don't have the tactile on that. Most of my kids I train in here, but like right now I'm doing a father and son. The son has ADHD, he's 5 years old, ADHD. His dad has just returned from Afghanistan, has severe PTSD. So I'm doing it at the same time. We're in the same room, there's just a wall between them. The dad uses headphones, the kid gets to use the bed with vibration and everything else. So, but yeah, we get great results without the vibration. I just like the vibration. So our approach is painless, drugless, non-invasive, and there's never been a negative side effect, which is why the FDA does not regulate us currently. And I say this really kind of reservedly is just, I wish they did FDA regulate a little more, because there are people even in this town that are doing neurofeedback that have no certification whatsoever. And my feedback from them, I don't know them personally, but my feedback from people who actually have been there or worked there say they have actually intensified symptoms. So they had a person come in with some severe anxiety and actually increase their problem, which is possible if you don't know what you're doing. So I wish they did. I think it's on its way to FDA regulation, but as of currently, there is no certification requirement. I have currently 2 certifications. There's 1 left, and I'm working on that right now. I just kind of sit for the test. So that's the biggest thing, but I do have 2 other certifications. Yeah. So this comes from Dr. Frank Duffy, who is actually a neurologist and a professor at Harvard Medical School. And he says neurofeedback should play a major therapeutic role in many difficult areas. In his opinion, if any medication had demonstrated such wide spectrum of efficacy, it would be universally accepted and widely used. Meaning, the medical profession needs to get on board, because we are just as effective as medication. The problem is the pharmaceutical company doesn't own it, so they don't say much about it. But what he's saying is just, this works, and we should be taking a better look at this. goal for neurofeedback is to improve brain functioning without any side effects. Neurological improvement can lead to better successes with other treatments and therapies that focus on sensory, speech, behavior, social skills, and education, and so on. I have many feedbacks coming back from OTs and speech therapists that we do, because one is we never stop therapy. If they come to me to start therapy, they do not stop any other therapies we do in conjunction with. The reason is, the feedback we get is, we hit a milestone in OT, as soon as they started training, we went over this, we're getting more gains again, we're actually moving on forward to getting more towards our goals. And that's what we like to hear. So we've actually gone out and actually educated, just like I'm in here lecturing, we've actually done in-office lectures with staff for all the OTs and pediatricians. I have a lot of pediatricians that do refer. And when they do refer, I give them feedback when we do their initial mapping, we do their progress map and a final map, and we give them all the notes because we want them to see exactly what's happening. And the biggest feedback is when a parent goes to the pediatrician and tells them, look at what we got, look what's happening, and they're like, oh, you give this referral. So we have, and let me kind of say, it's all female pediatricians. No male pediatrician will refer to me yet. I'm working on it, but they won't. Any questions? I just don't answer. So, we're working on it. Okay.
I guess, have you worked with school teams much? So IEP teams?
Well, we get a lot of feedback from them because they don't tell them we're in the schools, we have stuff, information in there, but our feedback comes from the parents about the IEP. Now, for example, what you said is I had a kid who had an IEP who was basically on the way of getting kicked out of school. He was 12 years old. And we started training. By the end of this last school year, I started training halfway in the middle of the school year. But by the end of the school year, he was on the honor roll. So, and he was off an IEP. So, yeah. So ours comes more from the parents. The schools, it's really hard enough to crack. Go ahead.
So like, any ideas were open to suggestions. That particular child, I mean, I know they're all different, but what was his barrier that you helped?
So
what was he upset about at school?
Well, it really wasn't upset, is he just couldn't, okay, so his delta theta was, I mean, high as you can get. I mean, it was, so when I talked about the ratio of 2 to 3, just so you understand, I'm ADHD, mine was 17. That's how high my number was, okay? His number was 37. It's high. Average is 6 to 10. So he was way high. And so what we did is we focused on the attention areas of the brain and bringing that delta theta down into an appropriate level. And when we did, his brain, it really is essentially, I say ADHD brain is like a Ferrari with bicycle brakes. And the reason is the brain wants to go to sleep constantly. It has delta theta high. At night it reverses and produces high beta, less delta theta, and that's why they can't sleep well. So what ends up happening during the day is the brain wants to go to sleep, so it has to take every ounce of stimulation in order to stay awake. So that's why it's squirrel, everything. It's moving, it's doing. My son who has ADHD, which I have trained, is not perfect yet, but when we first started training, they put a banding on his chair to be able to kick the banding and keep them moving, because the more they move, the better they can focus. It has to do with stimulating the brain. As we do that, as we train the brain, the need to be able to stimulate the brain becomes less. That particular kid was actually on 39 milligrams of Adderall when we were done. It's completely off. So yeah.
Do you have any long-term studies, like how these children that go through the program, how they are maybe, like, I know it hasn't been around that long, but do they follow up?
They do have
follow-up
long-term
studies years later? Or?
Yeah, they do have long-term studies. The research that's out there. Now, I don't have the long-term studies, but other than what I get phone calls, like the case I'll show you, which is now 3 years in the making, almost 3 years in the making. But the research that's done in UCLA, Harvard, all the different places that have done the research, they do have long-term studies. It shows that all gains that they've made continued and never regressed. So that's why they say it's permanent. It does not regress. Now, there are kids that we make a certain amount of improvement, and then what happens is the brain will continue to make improvements after we're done for up to 6 months later. Okay? But I have kids, the parents are like, we've had such great things, we want to do another round, we want to do another session, we want to see how much more we can get. Now, my job in that situation is to make sure that we don't overdo it. Not meaning that we can overdo the training, but it can be cost prohibitive, meaning, or cost-benefit ratio. How much improvement can I make versus the cost of the therapy? If I don't feel we can make a good dent in what they want, then I don't want to take on the case because I want it to be worth their time and investment So my job is to make sure that it's appropriate to do that. So, but it's not that they regressed, they want to just get more. Perfect example is I had a Down syndrome kid who had severe anxiety. I mean, he couldn't even come to any type of doctor therapy office or anything. Could not be in a group setting for OT or anything because he was aggressive and biting and hitting and everything. As soon as we got done, his anger and aggression and his group therapy issues, he resolved, he got into group therapy, everything was fine. But he still was having some anxiety issues, so they came around, we did a second round. Anxiety's completely gone. In fact, he called me Todd in the movie. That was his therapy, Todd in the movie. So, but resolved his anxiety completely. His mom has kept up with me and let me know that he can go anywhere, dentist, anything, and he has no problems. I mean, in fact, he went to the dentist, sat in the chair, which was his hardest. Sat in the chair, let him actually open his mouth, let him work.
Speaking of, what is the cost?
Okay, so the cost is it very different for everybody. It all depends on the amount of treatment that's going to be in there. So when I give you cost, I just know it's an average, it's not the actual cost. I don't try and hide anything. That's why when we do this, and I'll explain how I do it, I break it down for everybody that comes in so that they can actually see the cost. If it's an ADHD cost, there's 3 maps and 20 treatments is average of $3,250. Now, if you have family-directed plan, they pay 100%. Family-directed is as far as if it's in your budget, but they will pay. So the family-directed Medicaid does pay 100% if you have it in your budget. And I've had people wait until the very end and finish half of their budget, and then the new budget comes in and they pay the second half of that. But we've had that, But some insurances pay, most don't pay for neurofeedback yet. They're on their way. We're seeing more and more every day. But right now, I just tell people if you have regular insurance, you probably expect them to not. But we don't let that be cost prohibitive. Meaning, when I say $3,250, the actual cost of that, if you go anywhere like Colorado or California, it's going to be $7,000 to $10,000. I keep my cost as low as possible. I am the only staff one. I don't have staff. I keep it me so that I don't have to pay and keep my. We're moving our office one is because rent has become too high, and we don't want to increase our fees, so we would rather move and keep a lower rent and be able to pass that savings on. So Kathy is my helper. She does most of the calls and insurance stuff. I don't have to pay her, luckily. So.
And the wife.
Yeah. So, but that's the cost. The more treatment it is, it's not proportional. Meaning, if I said 40 treatments would not be double to what I said. The more treatments, I actually lower the cost per cost treatment so that we can keep that cost down. That 50 treatments that I talked about did not even hit $5,000. Okay, so we try to keep it within a respectable range. That's why we always call it an investment. We know it's not cheap. We found neurofeedback for our daughter. I had a low back clinic in Montana. We found neurofeedback. We had somebody else do it. The first thing they said to us is, well, if you want to get on our schedule, you need to put $4,800 in our pocket. That was 20 sessions, $4,800, no mapping. Now let me explain. The mapping is $350 a map. We pay a third party for that. Okay, so the money that you're paying, a portion of that goes to another company. It's not coming to me, but they had no mapping. It was $4,800 for 20 sessions. Put it in our hand just to get her on the schedule. We found somebody else who, same cost, but was a little more, what would you say, polite about how they went about it. But we saw my daughter, who's special needs, mostly nonverbal, a development delay, went from not being able to attend to task, would just get up and walk around, looking in and everything. She went to being able to attend to task. She sat there. She started getting involved, started writing her name, started trying to do alphabet. You know, I mean, doing numbers. I mean, we saw some major changes in her, and we said, whoa, there's something to this. And I said, well, there's got to be a way I can do it. And luckily, a day later after I said that, we found Brain Core. Then a month, I had my first training. I got my first system, and that was 6 years ago. And that's all I've done. I don't really do the general chiropractic anymore. I do some, but not much. I don't have time.
So is there an optimal age range for it? Is there an optimal?
She stole my question.
Yeah. The youngest I've done is 3.
Okay.
And that as far as autism, he was 3. That's the youngest case. He was 3 autistic. Most of the time, if they can sit and watch a movie, I'll do it. It doesn't matter the age. And my mom, who's 74, well, she's 75 now. She was 74. She had severe anxiety when my father passed away a few years ago. Took her 3 hours to get out of bed every day just to talk herself out. She came to me for chiropractic, but she's like, what can you do for anxiety? And I said, hey, let's do a map. And we did 18 training sessions, completely resolved her anxiety. Gone. She still comes in for chiropractic, but she has no problems with anxiety at all. In fact, she's one of my biggest advocates. And do you have anything to add to that, Kevin?
No.
No, okay, I thought
Can I pass this around?
you can, so go ahead. So, so no optimal age other than if they can sit and, I mean, not necessarily have to watch the whole time, but if they can not want to pull everything off and everything, we can do it. So
I've heard some parents say, not many, but a few parents say, well, I guess it helped, you know, we're not sure, or we're not, maybe it was just maturity, maybe it was and not your practice.
No,
This was.
that's
somebody
not
else, but-
uncommon. It's not
Okay.
uncommon. What happens is majority of the patients will see something happen within the time frame of treatment. Not everybody does. What they'll say is, I don't know. I had one recently, beginning of summer, who I had just finished at the beginning of summer. I don't know. And then I talked to him, I said, well, you know, when you talked to me, when we first started talking about bringing him in, you said it took 30 times to tell him to get his shoes on to get it. Now you just told me he does it the first time you tell him. That's a change. You're not, people start seeing things, well, that's just a minor thing. I said, regardless, it's a change. And I said, the brain it's latent. It does take the time for the brain to change. Sometimes it happens within that time frame. Other brains take time to make that change. So I always tell them to give it 6 months. Call me in 6 months, let's talk about it and what's going on. By the time they call me in 6 months, every one of them. In fact, I had one who left my office, this was 2 years ago, left my office and said, you saw no change, nothing happened. Even though he was on almost 40 milligrams of Adderall, he halved it. He was at 17 when he left my office. Nothing happened, they were disappointed. And then right at the beginning of the summer, they came back and they said, yeah, best school year he ever had, we want to do another round.
Okay.
So, here's the autism case, just so that you all understand. So, this is the actual, she was 5-year-old autistic girl, and the way she was explained to me, this was the best explanation her mom gave to me was, our family's here, she had a younger sibling. Our family's here, she's here. She's out in space, she's out here, but we're grounded, we're here, she's here. When we finished this particular case, and this was 28 sessions, she was 28 sessions, when we did it, her mom says, we're here, she's here. Not here, she's here. Not with us, but she's here. I said, call me in 6 months. They did. It's been 2.5 years. They just recently came in. We just did another map. Now, let me show you something. This was the very first map, and you can't see the date, but it's 4/17/2013. I just put this on here today, so I know the date. Here's the foremost dysregulated area in the brain. But if you look at delta theta, it's pegged. It's the highest, which is the most common with autism, ADHD. Those cases, it's the highest. She does have anxiety. She does have some other problems. And she had anger irritability, and she actually would beat on her little sister. Okay, she was only 5. But look at her rating, red, pretty much red, all the way through on the cognitive emotional checklist. And then if you look at the readings, almost all red. It all matched up really, really well. A couple areas that didn't, but for the most part, it gave us a really good reading. Now here, just the other day, I did the map after 2.5 years. Where's delta theta? Look at that. It's way down. It's almost the bottom. It's still slightly elevated. But, you know what the parents' issue is now? Look at this, all yellow, a little bit of red, but look at all this change. They just want to see if we can get a little bit better attention. That's all they're asking for. They said, you know what, we had such great changes. And if you notice, this is the ADHD area. That's where we're going to start training. She starts probably next week. She'll start coming in for her second round 2.5 years later. So the date up here is the 9th. So when was that? That was just the other day, last week. So, but yeah, so she still has some cognitive dysregulation, but that came down. But these stayed almost the same, but her delta theta, which is all I trained. In that 28 sessions, all I trained was the delta theta. And there she is, almost completely down. Now, mind you, she was pegged. There it is. There it is today. So, okay. No, go ahead.
I just had a question. So what if they have autism and ADHD? Can you do them both at the same
Yep, we do it all
time?
at the same time.
Okay.
Yep, because one is this is just me talking, don't take this, take it for what it is, it's not research driven or anything like that. We know autism is a spectrum disorder, okay? So in the spectrum, my opinion based off of what I've seen in the patterns and brainwave patterns, I say ADHD is the first beginning of the spectrum disorder. So I say ADHD, Asperger's, autism. I think they're all similar, except for autism tends to have some variants in there other. But I think that ADHD is the beginning of that whole spectrum disorder. So when I treat autism, I would say probably 99.99998% of autistic kids have ADHD. Okay, so we treat it all at the same time. Because one is it'll be most of the common delta theta, and that's what we're going to spend most of our time is in delta theta, bringing that back down to an appropriate level. So yeah, any other questions? We're almost done, I promise. So we do have testimonials on there. I tried to put a video, I couldn't find the video. It was a Down syndrome case, but the mom was, you filmed that, Kathy, and she was pretty ecstatic, and she told all the good things that we did, but I couldn't find it, so I couldn't get it out here. But we do have them on there. There's also video ones on brain core therapy. It's not just me, it's all of brain core, which has about 170 doctors nationwide. And so we have video ones there, but I have written testimonials there and everything else. Let me kind of go back real quick, because I didn't get through that, how we measure improvement. That's really important. We did their initial map. We do brain training. Halfway through, we do another map. That map gets compared to the first map and actually give us 3 types of changes. It gives us the compensatory change, the direct change, and the total percentage change. The total percentage change is the most important. It's a derivative of the 2 other, okay? Research wants to see a 30% improvement from where they are towards normal. A 30% shift is considered significant. That's where we start to see really good things. My red line in my office is 50%. I want to see 50% because I see miracles happen when we hit there. So what I do is if I tell you this kid needs 30 sessions, and we're going to get 50% or better in that 30 sessions, and they don't hit 50% or better, we keep going until they do it, no extra cost. Because that's my only guarantee. We keep going, that's my guarantee. We'll keep going until we get that red line. But we will get that 50% or better. With that said, I've only had 7 in 6 years not hit my goal. And the average is 72% improvement.
And then they get it out and extended for free, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's our guarantee is we're going to keep going because we want that 50%. It's not the research line. That's just my red line. That's what I do it. So when I'm looking at a map, I look at what it's going to take to get that 50%. It's like I said, most commonly autism, 30 visits will hit that 50%. You know, I had the one that just hit 56% in his recommended care plan, and his dad's. I'm making him take some time off. He's 36 years old, but I'm making him take time off because we made such dramatic changes. We want to let those stabilize, them get cemented in the brain, and then a few months down the road, we'll be back doing more sessions. But I made that expectation in the beginning. When I looked at his map, I told him, I said, look, we're trying to make a big, big dent here, and we got to do this in sessions over time. It's not going to happen real fast. And so we manage those expectations. I'll let you know that up front. So, but those maps get compared. You get that actual comparison